Hi, this is Sanjana from Mockat, and today we are going to look at a past CAT paper, CAT 2022, a Slot 2 RC. Now, typically, I recommend going through the questions first, especially if your reading speed is good. You can take some time out, and depending on whether there are more direct or more inferential questions, you can choose how to solve and how to go through the passage. So you'll see that live with me. So let's start. One caveat here, in case if your reading speed is on the slower side and you are maybe solving about 50% of the paper or less, probably this is not something that you need to spend your time on. And in that case, what I would recommend is probably just choose the RCs that you're more comfortable with. And also you can sign up at mockat.com, and just with the free sign up, you get access to our daily reading articles and the author's point of view. And these are at CAT reading level across the genres and the sources that CAT looks at. So if you do one or two articles a day from there, you can probably increase your reading speed, increase your understanding, more important, and increase the number of questions and your VARC scores. And now let's get back to the RC, and as always, start with the questions. All of the following are examples of the negative outcomes of focusing on technical ideals in the medical sphere, except the. So probably three of these examples would be given in the passage. The fourth could either not be given, or they could have twisted something which is given to make it factually incorrect, which would be the right answer. In case if all of these are new examples, then it becomes a totally inferential question where we need to understand technical ideals in the medical sphere and use that to answer. So I'd recommend solving this once we are done with the entire passage. We can infer that the author would approve of a more evolved engineering pedagogy that includes all of the following except. So again, 3 out of the 4 options could either be points which the authors mentioned that this is how engineering teaching or engineering studies should be conducted, or based on the passage we could infer it. Again, we'll solve it once we are done with the entire passage. This is what I call a direct multiple question, where the points would be given in the passage, but it would be split throughout the passage. So we need to go back and validate each option with the passage, and whatever is not given, or whatever is again twisted and made wrong, that becomes the right answer. And again, we'll solve it at the end of the passage. In this passage, the author is making the claim that, so one of these options is something which the author is saying. So we need to understand the author's view and then solve this question. And now let's start with the passage itself. When we teach engineering problems now, we ask students to come to a single best solution defined by technical ideals like low cost, speed to build, and the ability to scale. This way of teaching primes students to believe that their decision making is purely objective, as it is grounded in math and science. This is known as technical social dualism, the idea that the technical and social dimensions of engineering problems are readily separable. So technical and social dimensions of engineering can be separated and remain distinct throughout the problem definition and solving process. So today, the way engineering is taught, students are encouraged to come up with solutions that can be developed at a lower cost, that can be built fast, and that can also be scaled. Now, this is focusing more on the math and science aspects, or the core technical aspects, right? And when we tell engineers to focus on this makes them focus on the technical aspects and not the social aspects. And this phenomenon is called technical social dualism, which is where the technical and social aspects are separate. This seems a little negative the way it's written, so this might not be the author's view. So let's keep reading the second paragraph and we'll get to know if the author agrees or disagrees with this. Non-technical parameters such as access to a technology, cultural relevancy, or potential harms are deemed political. So any non-technical aspects, they are considered to be political and invalid in this way of learning. Again, just look at the way it's written. They are considered. The author is not saying we consider or I consider. This is generally the way it is done now. So again, giving us a hint that the author might not be thinking this way. A lot of you guys would be doing this subconsciously anyway while you're reading, but I want to highlight it so that I want you guys to understand and figure out the author's view, which will really help us as we have a few inferential questions in this passage. But, a very important word as I teach in my lessons, those technical ideals are at their core social and political choices determined by a dominant culture focused on economic growth for the most privileged segments of society. Now, while people are trying to separate the non-technical parameters, the social aspects and all, and say that's more political, we are engineers, we look at the technical aspect, we're not concerned with this. But coming up with these technical ideals themselves are social and political choices which are basically driving growth for the most privileged section of society. So the most privileged section of the society, maybe the most powerful or the richest, their economic growth is what is benefited when engineers are looking only at the technical aspect, and that itself is a social or a political choice. By choosing to downplay public welfare as a critical parameter for engineering design, we risk creating a culture of disengagement from societal concerns amongst engineers that is antithetical, or that goes against the ethical code of engineering. So now the author's view becomes very clear. By recommending to engineers that they should focus only on the technical aspects, what they are risking being disengaged from the social aspects or the political aspects, and that is something which the author is saying is almost unethical. So the author's view clearly is that this technical and social dualism, which is separating the two, should not be done. So taking very brief notes here. Now I'm just writing best tech solution. Essentially, the author is saying these best solutions are based on math and science. I'm just using tech as a shortcut here. And the impact of that is that, they start focusing on objective tech-based solutions, and there is a separation in tech and social. This thing itself, we have a term. It's called tech-social, technical social dualism. I'll just put D over here for short. Can't write more than this in the actual exam. As a result of this, engineers are not focusing on the social aspects, which the author is telling us is wrong. The author's view actually becomes very clear from the remaining paragraphs. In my field of medical devices, ignoring social dimensions has real consequences. So there are very real results. It's not just that, okay, engineers might get disengaged or it might be unethical. There is a real impact which comes up when the social aspects are not focused on in this area. Now, this is also important because we have this question. So let's just pay attention and see what are all the points related to the medical sphere. Most FDA-approved drugs are incorrectly dosed for people assigned female at birth, leading to unexpected adverse reactions. This is because they've been inadequately represented in clinical trials. So people who are female at birth, the author's probably being a little politically correct and just looking at people who, are born female, given that, now we, of course, do consider cisgender and transgender. But for essentially anybody who's born female, because males are represented a lot more in trials and females are inadequately represented, or there are fewer females in clinical trials, most of the trials would have been done with males, and hence the dosage for females is not correct. So what the author is saying is there is a difference in dosage probably which would be there for males and females, but because the males have largely been there in clinical trials, that bit has not come out. Now FDA is basically the authority which approves drugs in the US. Should you not know it, it doesn't matter, right? The thing which we are understanding here is the real consequence, which is that women are essentially bearing the brunt here in this example because they are getting medicines which are either too strong or too weak for them. The dosage is not correct. Beyond physical failings, subjective beliefs treated as facts by those in decision-making roles can encode social inequity. So inequity or inequality is something which will get increased if some people have subjective beliefs and they are treating those beliefs as facts. It's not super clear here what this is about, so let's read on. For example, spirometers, routinely used devices that measure lung capacity, still have correction factors that automatically assume smaller lung capacity in Black and Asian individuals. These racially based adjustments are derived from research done by eugenicists who thought these racial differences were biologically determined and who considered non-white people as inferior. These machines ignored the influence of social and environmental factors on lung capacity. So eugenics, probably white supremacy or white supremacists is the a term which is more common now. If you don't know the term or you don't understand the history, I'd recommend you look it up more for just a general understanding. But it doesn't matter for this passage. What we can understand from this is because these guys had this belief that white people are superior and non-white people are inferior, they actually brought in a correction factor for these lung measurement devices. So along with a sexist bias, there's also a racial bias. So anybody who's non-white is also sort of negatively impacted in the medical sphere because this is still continuing. Many technologies for systemically marginalized people have not been built. So when it comes to people who've been consistently marginalized as a group, right? Some technologies themselves have not been built at all for them because they were not deemed important, such as better early diagnostics and treatments for diseases like endometriosis, a disease that afflicts 10% of people with uteruses. Again, we are looking at women or females, right? So such a large chunk, 10% of women are basically, falling prey to this particular disease, but not much has been done for that or done to prevent that. And we hardly question whether devices are built sustainably, which has led to a crisis of medical waste and healthcare accounting for 10% of US greenhouse gas emissions. So there were two issues with women, one with non-whites, and then another impact. This is not for a group of people, but this is for the environment. So there's not much sustainability also in the medical aspect. Now we can see that the next paragraph is coming back to engineers. So probably the medical aspects are done, right? So let's try our hand at solving this question. I generally recommend doing it this way because it will be quicker. Our accuracy would probably be higher because we've just read through this and we have the points, we remember them. You can try your hand at it. This is something which works for a lot of my students as well. All the following are examples of the negative outcomes of focusing on technical ideas in the medical sphere, except. So we've just discussed all the negative impacts. Let's validate each option and see which three are definitely given. Continuing calibration of medical devices based on past racial biases that have remained unadjusted for changes. So this is nothing but what's been happening for African American and Asian, essentially non-white individuals. So this is an example that is given, right? And since we are looking for the one which is not an example, we can eliminate this option. Exclusion of non-privileged groups in clinical trials, which leads to incorrect drug dosages. This is what was told to us about females. So again, this is an example that is given. So I'm just putting a tick here for those that are given. Whatever's left becomes the right answer. Neglect of R&D of medical technologies for the diagnosis and treatment of diseases that typically afflict marginalized communities. This again is related to women. This is about endometriosis. So you can see that that's exactly what is mentioned over here as well. So this again becomes an example that's given. So all of these can be eliminated and probably the fourth option is the right answer. Incorrect assignment of people as female at birth, which has resulted in faulty drug interventions. So this is not what is happening. People are not wrongly being assigned as female at birth, right? People who are male are not being told that they are female, or their parents are not being told they are female. The author is just being politically correct here and saying that, people assigned female at birth, again, I presume from the cisgender and transgender perspective. The idea is that, females have been inadequately represented in clinical trials. So we don't know exactly what dosage of drugs is sufficient for them. It's not that they are being considered to be females when they are not, right? So you can see what they've done is a lot of wordplay. They've taken words from the passage, but they've twisted it around and the meaning becomes wrong. So this becomes a right answer for the first question. Coming back to the passage. Social justice must be made core to the way engineers are trained. So the author is saying that right now we're not focusing on social aspects and we have to. This is something which is wrong and we have to focus on social justice. Some universities are working on this. Engineers taught this way will be prepared to think critically about what problems we choose to solve, how we do so responsibly, and how we build teams that challenge our ways of thinking. Individual engineering professors are also working to embed societal needs in their pedagogy. Darshan Karwat, we have some names. Names are not super important, but what he did was he developed activist engineering to challenge engineers to acknowledge their full moral and social responsibility through practical self-reflection. Again, another example, engineering, environment and society, the popular course he created, which teaches engineers how to engage in place-based knowledge and understanding of people, context, history to design better technical approaches in collaboration with communities. So universities are also working to bring in these social aspects, bring in social justice, right? Probably change some of these. There are also professors who are changing their own lesson format, their lesson content to bring these aspects. When we design and build with equity and justice in mind, we craft better solutions that respond to the complexities of entrenched systemic problems. So this is the conclusion that we have when we, possibly maybe the author is an engineer from the engineering community. So, when engineers design and build with these things, right, with equity, social justice in mind, then they come up with better solutions which will actually respond to the complexities of our current systemic problems. These problems could be really entrenched in our society, but these solutions could actually respond better to them. So the author's view becomes pretty clear. Right now, there's technical social dualism, where the two are treated separately, mostly in learning, and that has very real repercussions in terms of, the social aspects get missed out. Inequity can become even more entrenched or even more encoded, and we've seen examples of the medical sphere where women, non-white people, and even the environment keep getting harmed. So that has to change. There is some movement in that area, but obviously the author feels that much more can be done. Now, looking at the second question, we can infer that the author would approve of a more evolved engineering pedagogy that includes all of the following except. So we've understood that the author wants the social aspects to be brought in. So let's look at the options, and we'll eliminate three which the author would approve to be brought into the engineering pedagogy or their learning, and whatever's left becomes the correct answer. Moving towards technical social dualism, where social community needs are incorporated in problem definition and solutions. This one is wrong. If we come to the beginning, we know that technical social dualism is basically separating the technical and the social aspects, and the author is saying that is wrong. That is something which risks disengaging engineers from societal concerns. That is something which is antithetical, or just the opposite of the ethical code of engineering. So this should be the correct choice out here. The second part is definitely correct, but we have to move away from technical social dualism and not towards. So this first part is factually incorrect. Another thing which I teach in my eliminations module within RCs, sometimes you can have options which are partly factually incorrect, and that makes them the wrong answer. Making considerations of environmental sustainability intrinsic to the development of technological solutions is definitely correct. We have spoken about the environment, so we can confidently say that the author would want us to, or would want engineers to work on that. Design that's based on the need of communities using local knowledge and responding to local priorities. Definitely, this could be communities based on gender or race, right? So this is definitely something that the author would want. The author would want sort of all communities to be represented. A more responsible approach to technical design and problem solving than a focus on speed in developing and bringing to scale. Now, focusing on speed and bringing to scale is only the tech aspects, and throughout the author saying we need to focus on the social, political aspects as well. So, focusing on more than just this is also something that the author would agree with. So, we can eliminate options 2, 3, and 4, and option 1 definitely becomes the correct choice. The author gives all of the following reasons for why marginalized people are systematically discriminated against in technology related interventions, except. So, again, 3 out of these 4 options will be reasons as to why marginalized people, which again could be either females, non white people, or something, and why they are systematically discriminated against when it comes to technology. So, again, let's look at the options. Whatever is unrelated to this or not a reason for it, right, that would be a right answer. Beyond physical failings, subjective beliefs treated as facts by those in decision-making roles can encode social inequities. This is something which is mentioned for spirometers, where people had this incorrect belief that African American and Asians have smaller lungs, right? So this was a belief which is essentially systematically discriminating against non-white people. So this is a reason that's given, so it would not be the right answer. Please don't be confused that I'm putting a tick over here. What I mean is this something which is given because we're looking for something which is not given. These racially based adjustments are derived from research done by eugenists. Now, this again is related to the same topic. So this also we can say that is given in the passage and is a reason why marginalized people are discriminated against, right? The reason itself is given. They thought that non-white people are inferior. But those technical ideals are at their core social and political choices determined by a dominant culture focused on economic growth for the most privileged sections of society. This is probably a tricky option because this is not speaking either about women or about non-white people, who are the two groups of people that we know have been discriminated against based on this passage. However, if you see here, this sentence is talking about the benefit for the most privileged segments of society. Now, if the privileged segments of society are growing economically or are doing better economically, and that is happening at the cost of others, this also is a reason why systemic discrimination is occurring, because the focus or the priority is only these most privileged sections. So we can place this option on hold, right? In case if you have a doubt on it, that's what I would tactically recommend in the exam. Just validate the fourth option. If you feel that definitely the fourth option is also a reason, then we can come back to the third option. But if you read the fourth option, you'll see that it's all about the environment. We're speaking about sustainable building, medical waste, greenhouse gas emissions. All of that is related to the environment. Is it an issue? Yes. Is it a reason for why people are being marginalized? No, this is about the environment. So now you can be a little more confident with the third option and go for the fourth option, because the fourth option is definitely not related. In this passage, the author is making the claim that, so we've covered the author's view. Let's look for something which is the most in line with that. Engineering students today are trained to be non-subjective or objective in their reasoning, as this best enables them to develop much needed universal solutions. So the first part is right, the second part is wrong. Engineers are taught to be objective, but that teaching to be objective is something which focuses only on the tech aspects and not the social aspects. So it is definitely not a universal solution. A universal solution would be one that focuses on the technical as well as the social, political aspects, and which would help all people of all groups, all ethnicities, genders, as well as things like the environment. So this is definitely not the right answer. Let's keep reading. Technical social dualism has emerged as a technique for engineering students to incorporate social considerations in their technical problem solving processes. We just discussed it for another question. Technical social dualism is all about focusing only on the technical aspects and not for incorporating social considerations. So this is also wrong. This is factually incorrect. So we can eliminate it. The objective of best solutions in engineering has shifted the focus of pedagogy from humanism and social obligations to technological perfection. This is the other way around. The idea now is to focus or to not move away from technological perfection, but to sort of at least include humanism and social obligations as well, along with technological perfection. So the idea is not that now we are going from humanism and focusing on technology. Now we are expanding technology and also bringing about a focus. So it's sort of like, just swapped, and which is why it becomes wrong. Engineering students today are taught to focus on objective technical outcomes independent of the social dimensions of their work. This is definitely a claim that the author is making, particularly in the first paragraph. We also have examples for this and so on. So this would be the right answer, because this is what the author is saying we are currently doing. Now you might be a tad confused because, towards the end, the author has spoken about a couple of profs and also universities who are bringing in a change. But that's just a smaller part of it. Like right now, what is happening majorly is engineers or engineering students are focusing on the tech aspects and not on the social dimensions. So this definitely is a claim that the author is making. So that's it from me in this video. Hope this helps, and do jump onto mockat.com, try out the daily reading and POV, or if you want more guidance, then just sign up for one of the packs. I will be there to help you crack CAT 2023. All the best.